This episode is brought to you by Blinkist, the mobile app bringing you key insights from each of over 3,000 top nonfiction books, delivered via audio or short, punchy written blinks in 15 minutes or less. This morning, Leica introduced their new $4,900 full-frame SL2-S. Right, $4,900, not $6,000. But Leicas have never been just about price, and I want to know, what the heck does that second S mean? Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant, and today let's start by placing the SL2S in context by answering the question, what does the second S stand for? Now, I don't know what Leica had in mind, even after an hour-long video call with them last week, but I've decided the S stands for strategic. That's because, in one fell swoop, I think it's fair to say, Leica has continued to successfully manage its stewardship of the most storied camera brand in history, while revitalizing that brand in the era of hybrid cameras, at a moment when the global economy has been cratered by the COVID-19 pandemic. That they've done this by returning a century later to their pre-Leica cinema roots to fully integrate video into their set of core values, while lowering their prices through partnerships, economies of scale, and shifting production to other lower-cost parts of Europe, like the series of M lenses now being made in Portugal, for example. In other words, what I see as a commitment to making true Leica hybrid cameras available to a wider audience is just brilliant. It makes me very, very happy. After all, Oscar Barnack's original impetus for the Leica was not actually photography. Did you know that? Instead, what became the Leica was first a tool he created to efficiently evaluate batch-to-batch fluctuations in cinefilm emulsion sensitivities at the dawn of moving pictures. As for pricing, well, let's go back to 1964. Many decades after the original Leica was first launched, one full decade after the iconic M3 was launched, yet just a few short years after Nikon and Canon reintroduced and began to popularize 35mm SLRs. I say reintroduced because the first commercially viable 35mm SLR was brought to market in 1936 by Exacta. Anyway, in 1964, a Leica M3 body sold new for $297, just $64 more than a Nikon F, a premium of under 20%. Today, that $297 would be the equivalent of $2,500, less than a third of the price of Leica's latest M10 series rangefinders. But this is a profoundly different time, and Leica's place in the firmament is and is not as it was then. Their reputation and heritage remain peerless, but rangefinder cameras have become a niche segment, and Leica has refused to compromise on materials, image quality, industrial design, the joy of shooting, nor how it treats its employees. I simply do not begrudge them their pricing, because I believe this is what it takes for Leica to continue doing what it does better than anyone else in the business. But it is also the case that the introduction of the SL2S is not the first time Leica has had a rethink of how to make its products more accessible to a wider audience, whether it was the M2 or ME, or more significantly and underappreciated in my book, their brilliant interchangeable lens APS-C cameras. In fact, right now, Leica is selling their tiny, made in Germany, 24-megapixel APS-C TL2 with 18mm f2.8 Elmerit lens for $2,300. This is a real arbitrage opportunity because the body only is selling for $2,500. The TL2's kissing cousin, the CL, which we own and love, just ask Claudia, is selling right now for $3,000 with the same lens, but the CL body alone sells for $3,100. I share this with you because I see the SL2-S as an inflection point in Leica's evolving thinking about pricing, but okay, enough of that. Let's explore the SL2-S directly. Though before we do, I want to introduce you to Blinkist. Maybe you have some of the same problems I do, swamped by the constant noise and latest outrages of an hourly, sometimes minute-to-minute news cycle, a desperate wish to rise above it all and to regain a sense of balance and optimism in the midst of the pandemic, a need to look beyond one's self for the wisdom, inspiration, and energy to make that happen. To which, I think, the answer can often be found in books. Books by brilliant people, funny people, wise people, poetic people. But who has the time for books anymore? This is precisely the problem Blinkist solves. I've been relying on Blinkist for much of this past year, an app for your smartphone which summarizes some of the best nonfiction books out there, more than 3,000 of them, each in about 15 minutes. Think of Blinkist as punchy audio and or written summaries for lifelong learners, with the option to download full-length audiobooks on the one hand, what they're calling shortcasts, audio and written summaries of some of the best podcasts out there, on the other. Like The Happiness Lab, with Yale professor Dr. Laurie Santos, who, in the very first episode, explores why we share photographs. These blinks can be downloaded for offline reading or listening as well, and premium subscribers have access to full-length audiobooks at up to 65% off. I use Blinkist when I'm making breakfast, driving solo, walking the pooch, even, especially mowing the lawn. It's an incredibly efficient and productive use of my time, and it could be for you too. Just this week, I listened to Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinker, a professor of cognitive science and linguistics at Harvard. I loved his historical review of the 17th century era of enlightenment and his upbeat, fact-filled assessment of the power of and return to science, reason, and humanism. I enjoyed the humor of Blinkist's Who's It For section, which includes optimists and recovering pessimists. Yeah, count me in on that. But more directly relevant to our conversation about Leicas in particular, and why they speak to me, is Alan Moore's Do Design, which Blinkist has boiled down to just 8 blinks, key ideas. I was able to read those all in less than 15 minutes. I read much more quickly than I speak, though I do like listening to Brits. In fact, because they're sponsoring this video, Blinkist will give the first 100 people who go to www.blinkist.com/Hugh free, unlimited access for 1 week to try it out, cancelable at any point during that time, and 25% off if you want the full membership. I'll put that link down in the show notes so you can just click on it and away you go. Give it a try. With 14 million users worldwide, they must be doing something right. I think they are. Blinkist. Highly recommended. At a practical level, you can think of the SL2-S as a still made in Germany, 24 megapixel SL2 with no video recording limit, better high ISO performance, one stop give or take, for $1,100 less. I'm going to repeat that. No recording limit, at least not up to DCI 4K 10-bit 422, 24 or 30p internally, full sensor width readout as I understand it, superior high ISO performance, $1,100 less. Although what other limitations there may be remain to be determined as well. I'll be able to tell you more once I actually have one in hand. You could, on the other hand, think of the SL2-S as a radically upgraded version of the original SL, now equipped with IBIS and superior sensor, processor, EVF, ergos, video ports, autofocus, weather sealing, for almost $3,000 less. You could even think of it as a larger and heavier, but vastly more flexible, EVF and IBIS equipped M10 for almost $4,000 less. But hey, given the L-mount alliance and the long-running partnership between Leica and Panasonic especially, you might also think of the SL2-S as a twice the price Panasonic Lumix S1 with sensor tuned for wide-angle M lenses. Truly, it is, wrapped in that beautiful SL2 bodywork and menu system, or a 2.5 times the price S5 wrapped in that same body and menu, but this time with a full-sized HDMI port and way better EVF along with the aforementioned sensor tweaks. Heads up, just a thought, for $2,000, I think the S5 is the sweet spot in the entire L-Mount Alliance camera lineup at the moment. Then again, you could also assert, if you were so inclined, that the SL2-S is a luxury item, offering less bang for the buck than a Sony A7S3, A7R4, a Canon EOS R5 or R6, a Nikon Z6 II or Z7 II. None of these are unreasonable ways of thinking about the SL2-S, though these last two I think miss the point of what shooting with a Leica is altogether. And I'd assert that Leica is not a luxury brand, but a premium brand. This is an important distinction to me personally. What is not really open to interpretation is that the SL2-S is an SL2, save for the sensor, a few tweaks in price. It's still made in Germany. I don't know how many times I've mentioned this already. And externally, it's indistinguishable from the higher resolution SL2, save for the blacked out Leica wordmark on the front of the camera. Black is beautiful and very Vader-y. Internally, yes, the SL2-S does sport the same brilliant EVF, IBIS, and Maestro 3 processor. What is also indisputable is that the SL2-S, like its siblings, is suffused with the same heritage of highest image quality, iconic industrial design, and humanity of the most storied company in imaging history. Here's the thing. The flurry of recent L-Mount Alliance announcements like Panasonic's Lumix S5 and 85 1.8, Sigma's 24 3.5, 35 2, 65 2, 85 1.4, 105 2.8 macro, 100 400 5 to 6.3, and 1.4 and 2x teleconverters, and now Leica's SL2-S, means that the L-Mount Alliance is suddenly much more interesting and accessible to many more people. We now have on offer superb full-frame hybrid shooting experience with superb optics and image quality from, say, just taking 35mm for the moment, $2,700 or so for the 24 megapixel Lumix S5 with Sigma's DGDN 35f2, to call it, $11,000 for Leica SL2 with Apo Summicron SL35, and now a number of fascinating mix and match combinations in between. You want to step up, for example, to that utterly unique Leica shooting experience and want superb, real-world image quality, but budget constrains you from going all out? You can get the SLS2 with the Sigma 35 II for $5,600. You want the Leica shooting experience and high resolution so that you can crop the crap out of images while keeping a relatively low profile and keeping your powder dry for other purchases or purposes downstream? I can relate. An SL2 with that same Sigma 35 II would be about $6,600. Or maybe you prioritize glass over bodies, but still want one of the most thoroughly thought out, comfortable bodies on the market with great video features. You can get the Apex Apo Summicron SL35 with Lumix S5 body for $7,100. But don't forget the $1,800 full frame, though more specialized Sigma FP on the one hand, and especially don't forget Leica's APS-C TL2 and CL, because all three take the same L-Mount Alliance lenses. All of them. Though, while we're at it, don't forget about all the M-glass that you can focus manually via that spectacular 5.7 million dot IRES EVF of the SL2 and SL2-S, all the while having direct depth of field preview. Let's wrap it up for now this way. None of this is cheap. Candidly, nothing in the L-Mount Alliance today can match Sony or Canon autofocus performance for fast-paced sports or wildlife stills, nor video. Nothing in the L-Mount Alliance today can match Sony's A7S3's full-frame, no-crop 4K frame rates, codecs, or bit depth, nor the R5's insane 8K video. But what they do give you, right now, Includes up to 30 frames per second full sensor width, 10-bit 422, all intra, 400 megabits per second DCI 4K recorded internally, up to 60 frames per second in 8-bit 420 recorded internally, though cropped to APS-C, and 10-bit 422 for those resolutions and frame rates that are only 8-bit 420 internal if you send the signal out through the HDMI port to something like the Atomos Ninja 5, which we do own. The good news? Leica is promising significant firmware updates, especially around autofocus, and greater video options in the coming months. Maybe, someday, they'll even offer depth of field preview. Guys, please? And while we're at it, the ability to close the shutter before one changes lenses to protect the sensor from dust, that would be fantastic. But most importantly, as I've already said, at least to those for whom it matters and who can afford such a luxury, you now understand I mean something quite different from the usual conception of luxury. Leicas give you unique, brilliant shooting experiences unmatched by any other camera system in the industry, full stop. I don't know about you, but they give me joy, the inspiration and time to become at one with them, and when or if one does want to upgrade, the tantalizing possibility that you get back more of what you spent than with any other brand in the market. In which case, perhaps, Leicas are not so expensive after all. This episode was brought to you by Blinkist, the mobile app bringing you key insights from each of over 3,000 top nonfiction books delivered via audio or short, punchy written blinks in 15 minutes or less. Right now, the first 100 people to go to www.blinkist.com/Hugh are going to get free unlimited access for 1 week to try it out, cancelable at any point during that time. You'll also get 25% off if and when you sign up for a full membership. Check them out. And thanks, Blinkist. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, join the conversation below because this is an incredible audience. If you'd like a copy of our Streets of New York, the book, head over to www.3bmep.com/books. If you'd like to schedule a one-on-one video session with me for a portfolio review, explore or hone your artistic voice, select gear, and more, sign up at www.3bmep.com/booking. Finally, consider supporting our work by using our no-cost-to-you affiliate links down below, picking up some official Three Blind Men and an Elephant swag at 3bmep.threadless.com, sending coffee money via PayPal, or best of all, join us as a patron over at Patreon. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.